Studio 397's latest track release, Sebring, is easily one of the best sim racing tracks I have ever driven on. It is truly incredible, it's a great laser scan circuit, and I think it's truly worth $10. Which is exactly why I think Studio 397 should have released it for free. Let's talk about that. So a few days ago, Studio 397 released their first laser scan circuit for rFactor 2 in the form of Sebring. This is the most up-to-date version of Sebring in a sim racing title. This was based off of scan data from March 2018, just before this year's iteration of the 12 Hours of Sebring. This is an interesting project for rFactor 2 because one of the main complaints with RF2 is that it is a great title, but it had no laser scan circuits. So Studio 397 really did a great job with this track and did some interesting creative moves with this. For example, with a conventional laser scan track in titles such as iRacing or Assetto Corsa, they would have the laser scan mesh, and that would be below the visual mesh, what you would see in the sim. So what you would see in the sim isn't exactly what you're driving on, and you wouldn't see all the bumps and everything. What Studio 397 has claimed they've done, and I tend to believe them on it, is that the laser scan mesh and the physical mesh, the visual mesh, what you're seeing is one and the same. So you see all the bumps, you see all the texture of the surface, and then you feel it as well, like right here, turn 17. Going into this corner, you just feel the car get unsettled. You see the car get unsettled over the bumps. And it is an incredible feeling that I haven't gotten on any other version of Sebring. This is a magnificently recreated version of Sebring. And as mentioned, it is a $10 track. And I would recommend it for $10, except I think this should have been a free track. And the reason behind that is simple: marketing. So, a couple years ago, Studio 397 took the reins of rFactor 2 development from Image Space Incorporated. At the point of Image Space Incorporated giving up the reins of rFactor 2, they had essentially left the sim for dead. It was in somewhat of a state of development limbo. There were a lot of cars and tracks that were halfway in development and just hadn't been finished. And it was concerning for fans of the rFactor series like myself. I loved the feel of rFactor 2's driving and what we had available, but at the same time, it was true that rFactor 2 was, and honestly still is, an unfinished title. But Studio 397 has worked magic with rFactor 2. They have really been able to get a lot out of rFactor 2. In the 2 years, we've gotten rFactor 2 brought up to DirectX 11 standards. We've had virtual reality implemented. We've had GT3 packs. We've had endurance packs. We have LMP cars now. There's so much that Studio 397 has brought to the sim. But the thing is, most of the best content that is out now is behind a paywall. That's one of the frustrating things so far, because GT3 is a very popular racing series in the world, and that is a $15 DLC for about 6 cars. And then this new Endurance Pack DLC. Endurance racing is one of the big things that rFactor 2 is known for. It is known for great endurance racing elements. And this is one of the only sims where we could, say, race a virtual 24-hour Le Mans with day-to-night transition and rain. But for the longest time, they didn't really have the makings for a full endurance field. Now, with the Enduracers mod, if you want to race older cars, or the new Endurance Pack for rFactor 2, you have the ability to have true multi-class racing. But there was also the element of you didn't have a full-fledged endurance circuit to race on. And that was kind of a shame. We had a classic version of Spa. We didn't have a full modern version of Spa. We had third-party versions of Le Mans, but those were somewhat out of date, and apparently the license for Le Mans is extremely expensive. So when I heard that Sebring was coming to rFactor 2, I was very, very excited. And then we hear it's $10, and I just think to myself, oh no. Because what you have to consider is rFactor 2 is a relatively svelte title in terms of content and also community. The thing is, not many people are driving in rFactor 2. Unfortunately, that's a fact. So it's not just an element of bringing people in, it's something where you have to give them stuff to really draw them in. And that's where I think that rFactor 2 is somewhat struggling with right now. Because a lot of the free content is good, but a lot of it's out of date. With this new GT3 pack and a new Endurance pack, it's great to see this modern content, but also comes at a cost. And that is going to be very off-putting for new people looking at the possibility of buying rFactor 2. And it's tough to recommend rFactor 2 when you have to say, yeah, rFactor 2 is such a great sim, but you're going to have to buy the DLC to get the most out of it. And especially with Sebring, that $10 price tag kind of hit a sore spot for me, because with that $10 price tag, that is locking away the first laser scan circuit for rFactor 2 behind a paywall. And one thing that comes to mind is Forza Motorsport. I know it's comparing apples and oranges, sim versus not a sim, whatever you want to say, but Forza Motorsport, I think it was Forza Motorsport 5, released their first laser scan track, which I believe was either the Nürburgring Nordschleife or Long Beach. It was a free release, and that showed that they were serious about the laser scan development and the community. With rFactor 2, I think they should have followed in Turn 10's footsteps with seeing how the track is, with seeing how great it is. It could have been an excellent marketing point for Studio 397. My mindset is you are not able to market this track to people in the form of a paid DLC. You can't say, buy rFactor 2 and then buy Sebring and you're going to be great. People aren't going to buy rFactor 2 just for Sebring, I think. They're going to buy rFactor 2 for simulation, and then if they enjoy it, then they would consider buying Sebring. Looking at if Sebring was free, then I think people would buy rFactor 2 for Sebring. And I think people would seriously consider buying rFactor 2 more seriously if Sebring was free. And think about it. rFactor 2 retails for about $30 if I remember correctly. So for every $10 that Studio 397 is making by the DLC, imagine if 2 people bought rFactor 2 because of Sebring if it was free. That's $60 versus $30, or no, $20 for just buying 2 versions of rFactor 2. That's my mindset. That's the mentality that I think Studio 397 should look into, because realistically, it is great that we have this track, and again, I wholeheartedly recommend it for $10. But the problem lies in when it's a very small user base. Look on Steam charts, and you're going to see roughly 700 people using rFactor 2 on peak days. That's pretty low. I think that if this was a free track, that number would have gone up. A free track for rFactor 2 would have drawn more people in and caused more excitement. rFactor 2 needs more people playing it to really survive. And I think that locking the best content away behind this getting even steeper paywall it's not the smartest move. One other solution that might come into place as development furthers? How about a season pass, Studio 397? How about if there was an offer saying, hey, why not get all of the content that is post-release DLC for rFactor 2 for 50 bucks? I think I could justify that. And even right now, think about it. You have the GT3 Power Pack, you have the Endurance Pack, you have Sebring, you have Kart Sim, and that would be a great value in itself. So maybe in the future, could we see a season pass or something like that? Sebring's a great track, but I think it's not the best marketed. It could have been marketed better. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think that Sebring should have been a free track, or do you think it's just fine $10? Let us know in the comments. Also, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button and help keep us on track. For the Sim Racing Paddock, I'm William Marsh, and you have a great rest of your day.